At school, has your child expressed that they don't understand or like a topic? Or maybe they feel under challenged as they feel that the work provided for them to complete is too easy. All these questions seem valid, but what happens when a child shares their views and/or feelings in class, but the teacher's response is disproportionate to what a child was seeking, resulting in a child feeling confused, invalidated, and in some cases having a loss of control over whether they can stay on or continue with studying that subject at that school or college. So in this video, I'm going to talk about those encounters when we find out that a child that's living with autism has been invalidated and look at the reasons for why this could happen in the classroom. I will share personal examples and then discuss why it is important for us as parents to stay empowered whilst we ensure that our children's voices are heard. My name is Brenda and I'm a parent mentor and a fellow parent. I support parents raising children with individual needs and differences to stay empowered whilst they navigate through procedural challenges. I have advocated for my son who has autism, ADHD and other medical conditions whilst he's been in mainstream education. And on more than one occasion I have encountered so many situations where there has been possible missed opportunities whilst experiencing setbacks about how people perceive his condition to be. So why is this? My son enjoys interacting with people, especially around his shared interests, and he prefers a slower pace of conversation, and he has built his social skills over time. Each person living with autism is different. Simultaneously, like my son, many students with autism face various challenges when it comes to social interactions, social communication difficulties, and a lack of understanding of social cues. There can be cognitive challenges where a child can experience problems remembering, difficulty speaking, difficulty understanding and problems concentrating. Other challenges can be difficulties predicting others' behaviour based on a child's thoughts and feelings. Therefore, there may be moments where a child's ability to be able to diplomatically or tactfully express themselves in a perfect manner may not be the same as, let's say, the majority, but rather than be supported with guidance, they may experience the opposite. And this is really difficult because with the issues around a lack of funding, resources and/or availability, not all children or young people have access to an EHCP, a teaching assistant in the classroom. So being in a position to be able to self-advocate for themselves will be quite challenging for them. But the problem occurs when a child shares that they have a problem and the reaction to what they have shared has resulted in negative consequences. Which for me as a parent is quite shocking, especially when those that have a duty of care to remove the barriers that a child faces within their education because of an individual need actually do have a responsibility to pay attention to this. So I'm going to share two examples on my journey where things went really well and on another occasion where it didn't go so well. Just to give an example of what can happen when there's no recognition for how their condition of autism has an impact on their ability to communicate. My son had recently enrolled onto a course at his local college, and it was the first couple of weeks where, like all other students, they had the option to decide whether the course was for them. So there was a window of like a couple of weeks for them to decide. So when my son took the initiative to actually go up to the teacher and express the problems that he felt he was facing in regards to the details of the syllabus, where he wanted to have a conversation to exchange his feelings and ideas about the course, he expressed his views in a way as to say, I don't understand what you're trying to explain. I already know this, but I don't know about that, and I wanted to know when it will be taught. Sadly, the teacher responded in a way that made it seem that she perceived that her ability to teach was at threat. Communication was directed such as, she had been there for X amount of years and she'd never come across a situation like this before. Things went on to escalate and went down a whole rabbit hole of judgment, and I've expressed this in some other videos. But thankfully, the situation took a turn for the better after advocating for his views to be heard. However, this wasn't the outcome for a similar situation that happened a couple years back when my son was in a mainstream secondary school. He was in a situation where that he was actually new to the school. He was new to the staff, he was new to the other pupils. So as you can imagine, someone with autism having to deal with change, also being in those impressionable developmental years, and that he had to learn a whole new curriculum and syllabus after coming from a specialist school. So when he made it known to a particular teacher and how he was sharing how he found it quite challenging, the same thing happened. This teacher also did not respond to the feedback very well. Only this time it did result in my son not being able to continue to do that GCSE in that particular subject. And the reason was because this information wasn't relayed back to me as a parent in order for me to be part of the process and support and advocate for him in that particular situation. My son was letting the teacher know that he was finding it difficult to find his bearings and was hoping for some guidance, but instead it had an opposite effect. So in both of the examples that I've described, if I wasn't in a position to be able to step up, things could have happened differently. And unfortunately, that's a sad state of affairs that we live in, especially when there are a lack of resources. Our role as parents to be able to advocate for our children is essential in those particular moments. On this journey, there are many things that we don't have control over. We can't have control over how a teacher is feeling or be there to buffer the consequences. No child wants to feel invalidated or become a target of someone else's judgment, left to feel that they are the problem. When this happens to a child, the impact is significant on their confidence and their ability to advocate for themselves. But the damage had already been done in reference to what happened to my son when he was at school. Thankfully, the path forward wasn't a reflection of what the teacher's thoughts were of what my son would achieve, as he did go on and was able to continue with his experience to thrive and grow within his education. And I'd love to know if any of you have experienced something very similar with your children. Maybe they've said something and the consequences were quite dire. Things escalated, they'd gone from 0 to 100 very quickly, where the intent of your child wasn't necessarily seen for what it is, but was perceived as something that it wasn't. But for now, keep doing what you're doing, stay focused, stay empowered, and keep creating progress. Thank you for listening.